Director of Capital Projects and Planning for Cornell Tech. It's my full-time job to oversee the planning, the design, and the construction of the Cornell Tech campus on this site. I'm an employee at Cornell University. And I also want to start by introducing our two partners here. As I think people know from the original conception of the campus, this was never meant to be solely a Cornell academic campus without connection to the city. And so we brought in two development partners, one for the bridge building, which Kate will describe. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Kate Bicknell for City Ratner, Senior Vice President there, working on the Cornell Tech project, doing both our role as an advisor to Cornell on the development of the site and the academic building as well, the Bloomberg Center, as well as the developer of the bridge at Cornell Tech, which is where industry will have the opportunity to be on campus.
And our second partner here is Hudson related companies who are working with us to develop the residential tower, and David Kramer is here to represent them.
And I'm David Kramer, president of the Hudson Companies, partner with Related. Hudson Related started working on Roosevelt Island in 1997 on Riverwalk. We just finished our 7th residential building, Riverwalk Point, 90% leased. And we were designated by Cornell 2 years ago to build the residential tower, 26 stories, that I fondly call the frat house, P-H-R-A-T, which would be the passive house residential at Tech.
So let me walk through this presentation. So, as I think most of you know, Cornell was awarded the project back in late 2011, and one of the commitments that Cornell made was to develop a campus to open in 2017. But in the meantime, to start the academic program. So that was one of the critical goals, is that we wouldn't start with no students in 2017 moving on to an empty campus, but that we would start ramping up our program, start hiring faculty, start bringing graduate students to New York City, and start graduating them through our process as we learn about the tech economy in New York City and connect with it. So we currently have somewhere between 140 and 150 students on our campus in the Google building on 8th Avenue and 15th Street. You get a sense from this image of the kind of space that we have. It would not be unusual to see this sort of a space in a tech firm. It doesn't look like an academic space. And so these are the kinds of spaces that we're going to be building on our campus. So we're using the current crop of students. We're in, I think, our 3rd year. Next year we're going to have even more students, and by the time we get to the campus here, we'll have probably over 300 students. And so the goal is to use this opportunity to not only develop the programs, but also to understand how the students interact with the space, what kind of pedagogy the professors are using, and to really tailor the campus spaces around the sort of education learning that's being developed at Cornell Tech. So we're very closely aligned with the mission of the campus. So what is the campus plan? The Roosevelt Island campus plan, the way we think about this is a laboratory of innovation. We're looking at developing a campus which supports these very innovative pedagogical techniques that we're looking at, and sort of cross-disciplinary opportunities that are being developed at the Cornell Tech campus. So what we want to do is use the opportunity of the campus to support those programs, but to push even further in various different directions. One of the key elements that we'll be talking about a lot is open and inviting to the campus, to the public. One of the key attributes of the Cornell Tech project is that it's very outward looking. It's all about impact for the city, impacting the economy of the city, and connecting with the rest of the city. So one of the ways to do that by using the campus is to have an open campus where we invite the public onto the campus, not only to enjoy the physical spaces that we're developing, but also to participate in the programming that'll be provided, but also, in addition to that, potentially to have companies located in the bridge building, to have facilities for an executive education center, which we'll be developing, as well as potentially a hotel. So we're all about trying to reach out to the New York community to bring them onto campus, and the physical development of campus has to support that mission. The second one that we talk about a lot is sustainability and energy efficiency. Cornell University is a national leader in reducing its energy footprint. It's made tremendous strides in Ithaca, and bringing that sort of thinking to this campus as well. So one of the key elements, both architecturally, that you see in this rendering is the generation of energy through solar panels, which sit on the top of the Bloomberg Center, which is on the left. and the bridge building, which is on the right, but also a lot of things that you don't see, such as geothermal wells beneath the public lawn that you see in the front of this image, as well as what David mentioned, which is really a groundbreaking building in the residential building, the world's first passive house high-rise building, residential building. In terms of the overall site plan, I think people have seen this before. We have a 12.5-acre site that we'll be developing in 3 phases. The north is to the right, and what you see there are our first three buildings. Let me point them out. The first is the Bloomberg Center, which is our academic facility. The second is the Bridge Building, which used to be called the corporate co-location. And the third is the Executive Education Center and Hotel. The fourth is the residential building, and then the central utility plant. All of these, except for the Executive Education Center, will be opening in 2017. The other thing that we're very focused on right now is development of the landscape. This is all publicly accessible landscape in a permanent condition and in an interim condition on the southern end of the site, because these are future development sites for additional Cornell Tech programming. We're also rebuilding the roads and all the utilities around the campus. So let me just tick through very quickly here. Public open space, as I said, our goal is to reach out to people and have this campus be accessible. So we're very focused on public open space. The architects that we hired for this is SOM, managing the overall project, but field operations and Jim Corner, who's a well-regarded landscape architect who did the High Line. And so we're looking to create that sort of aesthetic. You see public open spaces that connect people together. No walls, no gates, no barriers. That's very important to us. It's not a typical college campus in that sense. Everything is open. And as I mentioned before, a lot of public programming on site to bring people onto the campus. Again, just to reinforce this idea, we have various different conditions of seating. We have an amphitheater, a whole series of landscape opportunities. It's not just a kind of a blanket lawn. In fact, there's only one lawn on the whole site. But the idea is to use every inch of the open space for programming purposes, to bring people together and try to support our mission. The Bloomberg Center is the main academic facility. It's got classrooms, it has an auditorium, it has a space for professors and students, studio space, office space, as well as a public cafe. I've already talked about the net zero goal. The idea is to not use any fossil fuels for this building. We'll be generating energy through solar panels on the roof, and we'll be using the geothermal well field to support the heating and cooling of the building. The other thing we talked about here is the public cafe. So we're trying to, again, invite people onto the campus and into the cafe. So while the public won't be able to go into the academic spaces in the building without a pass, the cafe is public. It's on the ground floor, and it faces the lawn and a major terrace. So the idea, again, is to invite people onto the campus, to have them participate in what we're doing, and potentially to provide an additional food source on Roosevelt Island. There's a big public art program that we'll be developing in the building. And I also want to talk about programming. One of the things that we talked about a lot with the community when we went through the public review process was the opportunity for the community to be able to use the auditorium and the classroom spaces in the building. And that's something that we're very dedicated to. So I'm going to turn it over to Kate to talk about the bridge building.
Great. So as Andrew mentioned, if the mission of Cornell Tech is to bring together academia and industry to spur innovation and the commercialization of new products and technologies, the bridge is really the physical manifestation of that mission. So the bridge is approximately 230,000 square foot building designed by Weiss and Freddie. Cornell will be about a third of the building. We'll also have inside the building co-working spaces that allow the diversity of startups, small startups who can't necessarily afford to sign leases, but allow that creativity and diversity and energy of new companies coming into the building as part of the building. And then we'll have a combination of established tech companies who may want to rotate innovation teams, research teams, venture teams through the building, and other tech startups itself who may want to locate their business in the building as well. So it's really about bringing together and bridging academia and industry together in one place.
And as it notes here, Cornell Tech is one of the first tenants of the building. We'll be developing studio space for our students as one of the tenants of this building. The next is the residential building. David, do you want to talk about it?
Sure. It's the residential building for the master's students, PhD students, and faculty. 26 stories, 500 beds in different layouts for studios, 1 bedrooms, and shared 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. It's the first. It's the biggest passive house building in the world. And so, for those of you who don't know what passive house is, it is the most rigorous global certification program for energy efficiency. And in order to have a passive house building, it's a very specific objective that you have to meet, which is 32 kilobtu per square foot per year. Yes, I've memorized that. And what does that mean? Well, a typical building has energy usage of 132 kilobtu per square foot per year. So it is a real step forward for energy efficiency, and is sort of the next generation from what you all have heard of, which is LEED buildings. And so this is the tallest and first high-rise residential passive house building in the world, and it's the largest by square footage passive house building in the world. And we worked with an amazing team that includes our architects, Handel Architects, our consultants at both Stephen Winter Associates and Burrow Happold, to create this project. Hudson Related worked with Handel Architects on Riverwalk Point that just finished up. And we are pouring the 4th floor today, and we have to be finished in summer of 2017 because the students are coming.
So one thing I want to give all credit to the architects and the development teams here. We started out with a vision for a 21st century campus and we gave the architects a real challenge to say that we didn't want the buildings to all match each other. In fact, we hired 3 different architects for the first 3 buildings. And what we said is we wanted them to relate to each other, and we wanted it to feel like a campus environment, but we didn't want them to match. And so Morphosis Architects, Tom Main, who designed the first building, started with a language of metal on the exterior, metal cladding. But one of the most important things he did is to create the entire ground floor is glass. So when you look down at the image there and the one that I showed before and some of the ones up here, you see that the ground floor is all glass. So everything is visually accessible. And then Weissman Freddy took that as well, created a glass ground floor, and the residential does as well. So all the buildings are clad in metal, so there's a sort of a modern look. They're all a little bit different color, different shade, but they all have a kind of future-looking quality to them. And I think it's important that what we thought about is pulling everything together, both through scale and materials, but also through the landscape. And so, as I mentioned before, Jim Corner, Field Operations, designed the entire landscape. It's literally from the facade of each building out into the space. So there's only one landscape architect that pulls everything together with a common language and makes it feel like a campus. So 2017, summer of 2017, as Dave mentioned, all of the 4 buildings that you'll see today will be completed, and the campus will be used for the first time by students and faculty in the fall semester of 2017. In terms of the project schedule, we started the demolition back in 2013. We ended the demolition about 18 months later. Started the site work in December 2014, just this past year. We started the Bloomberg Center in March, the bridge building in May, and the residential building in June. So as you'll see outside, they're all under construction at the same time. And again, the opening date is summer of 2017. I just want to show you some pictures. I think people on Roosevelt Island have seen these before, but we're very proud of the work that we did for the demolition of the hospital. It was a very complicated project. The containers that you see in the front are the containers that were used to barge all the materials, all the debris off the island. And so we have a webcam that takes a picture. So this is just the development over the course of the past year. You can see by January 2015, we had cleared the north end of the site. This is the development site for phase 1. That's when we started. February, March, and then you can see the beginnings on the right-hand side of the Bloomberg Center and the beginnings of some of the excavation for the site utilities. By May and by June, the excavation was completed. By July, the bridge building had excavation nearly completed. The Bloomberg Center was already poured its basement. So you can see the development in October. The steel started for the Bloomberg Center in late October. I wanted to point this out, and I'll talk about it in a few minutes, is we started a new barging system. During the demolition, we barged everything off the island in containers. During the construction, we're actually driving trucks onto the island through a new facility that we built on the eastern side, and we'll have a look at that when we're out on the site. This is November 2nd, and then this is just something from this morning, which you can see where the site is. This is the Bloomberg Center on the right. That's all the way up to the roof at this point. The bridge building in the center, and the residential building, as David mentioned, is pouring the 4th floor today. This is a great view from a building in Manhattan that's going up, so you get a sense of the relationship of all the buildings to each other. Upcoming and current work. So in site work, we're installing utilities on the east and west roadways, and you'll see that when we go to the west roadway, you'll see the whole thing is dug up. We're also installing utilities on the campus, and we're completing the roof of the central utility plant, we call it CUP, and we're starting the equipment installation pretty soon. Bloomberg Center, we're topping out the steel by the end of the year, actually probably by the end of this month, and we're going to start enclosing it with the facade in early 2016. The bridge will be topped out in early 2016, followed immediately by the facade and enclosure, and similarly with the residential building. We're going to be doing about two plus floors per week in terms of the concrete pour, and we expect the facade enclosure to start in the winter of 2016. Just a couple of images from work that's already been covered over, but you get a sense of the scale and the depth of the work that we're doing in the public rights of way. We are replacing all of the utilities in all of the roadways on behalf of both the public and the private utilities. We're doing the work, and then we turn it over to the public and private utilities at the end of the job. Again, work that's been covered up. Barging for demolition, I just want to talk about this for a few minutes. Here you can see on the upper image, an image of the containers being lifted onto a barge. We reduced truck traffic by more than 12,000 trips on Main Street by taking 100% of the debris from the demolition off the island by barge. We also barged on the large equipment onto the island. So we had cranes lifting other cranes and excavators onto the island. Barging for construction is a whole different operation. It's two operations really. One is bringing all the cranes, the big red cranes you'll see out there were all brought in pieces. There are about maybe 15 or 20 pieces per crane, brought into the island by barge and lifted over. And then we have built this new facility here, which allows trucks to be driven onto a barge and then barged up the river and then driven onto the island through this temporary facility. Here you can see it just about to be attached to the island. It's about a 60-foot wide, 60-foot long bridge that's attached to a barge. And here you can see it in place, and we'll look at this when we're out there, and I can describe how it works. A couple of images of that. And we're bringing some of the large equipment that we didn't want to come down Main Street. One of the main community issues in the UROC process was concern about construction impacts of traffic. And so large equipment like steel, some of the facade materials, some of the heavy HVAC equipment, which would come on flatbed trucks down Main Street. Instead of that, we're doing it from the barging system. Here you can see in the lower image, an image of one of the trucks with steel coming off of the barge. And here you can see how the system works. The truck, the cab actually backs up onto the barge, hooks onto the trailer, and then pulls the trailer up and onto the island. Again, 2017 is our goal. And I guess we'll take some questions now, and then we'll do a walkthrough.